Hello everyone and welcome on the Papier de Rêve channel. I'm Ursula and today I will be painting with you a pine tree. This painting will be a bit more about a portrait of a pine tree because this pine tree is in the garden of my parents and it is about to be chopped down just because it's a bit too big, a bit too close to the house, so it's a bit dangerous to keep it like that, so it will be chopped down and I just want to have a nice picture of it before it goes down. I'm starting my painting very loosely with a first wash of greens. I just want to place the element of this pine tree on the paper without worrying for now for the details. So I'm adding some green at the top because there is a lot of foliage at this place, and I'm tracing also the trunk of the tree with a mix of Indanthren blue and burnt sienna. The green I'm using today is a mix of Indanthren blue also with Aussie red gold, because I do not want the green to be too bright and too vibrant. I want a more muted green. So as Aussie red gold has a little bit of red in this color, it makes a perfect muted green for this painting. And I'm also adding a little bit of manganese blue for the sky behind the tree. So you can see everything is really blurry. There is no detail here, but the colors are in the right place, and that's all that matters for the first layer. I do not want to get too quickly in details because that's the best way to lose yourself in a painting. And before I let this layer dry, I'm adding a little bit more colors, a little bit more darker color in some area, because I know there will be dark colors in the foliage. And I also add some yellow ochre with nickel as a yellow in some area to signify that the sun is shining in the foliage in some places. Maybe it's hard to visualize the finished painting at this stage because everything is blurry and it looks a little bit messy, to be frank. But I know that there will be details adding in a later layer that will tie together the painting, and I have confidence in the process. So I will let this layer dry before adding some details. As usual, watercolor is drying really lighter than when you first put it with water, but that's okay. That's what other layers are for, to bring back some colors in some area and adding details so that you can understand this picture a little bit better. Before starting this painting, I didn't have any clue on how to create the texture for the foliage, because as it's a pine tree, there is some pine needles that are to be painted, and I do not want to get too much in details right now. I do not want to paint for so much time and adding needles after needles on my paintings. That's not the way I'm painting. I want things to be a little bit quicker with a lot of feelings into it. But what I did know is that I wanted to try to create a texture with this brush that I'm using right now. It's a dagger-shaped brush with natural hair. And it's a really interesting brush because it's quite fat at where the hair are joining the handle of the brush, but the point is really pointy, and you can make really tiny details with it, but you do not have too much control with it just because the hair are so long and very flimsy. And quite naturally, when I first paint with this brush on this painting, I felt that that was the right brush and the right way to create the texture of the pine needle, just because it dries quite quickly. Even I have a lot of water in the brush, it appears dry really fast, and when I use this brush with the side of the hair, I can get all this texture that are grazing just the paper, and as it's a rough paper, I get a lot of texture, and it's just a perfect texture for pine needles. So the bigger shape of the texture is done like that, with grazing the paper with the side of the brush, but I can also add some more defined pine needles with the point of the brush in some area, in order that for you to get a little bit of an insight of what's happening here. And when you see some pine needles in some area, your brain will make them appear in every area of the foliage. There is a second texture that is really important for me in this painting, and it's the trunk, because the trunk is very rough. There is a lot of texture in it, and I wanted for you to see that texture. So I'm using quite the same way of doing this texture, just adding a lot of colors with the body of my brush, and then with the tip I can just add the tiny lines in some area for you to see the texture of this trunk. And now that I'm happy with this second layer, I will let it dry and talk you through my supplies for today. For the brushes, I'm using an Escoda Ultimo number 18 and a Rosemary & Co. Series 39 half an inch, and a tiny round squirrel brush from Rosemary & Co. in R9. For the colors, I'm using Indanthrene blue, manganese blue, nickel azo yellow, yellow ochre, Aussie red gold, and burnt sienna. And today my paper is from Arches in Rough. I almost stopped this painting right at this stage, because I was quite happy with it and I didn't see at first what was missing, but I did kept it in the side of my desk for 24 hours, and I've seen it a lot during these 24 hours, and I felt that there was still things missing, and there was still things that I can do to make it a little bit better and understandable for you. First, I wanted to add a little bit of details in the ivy that are growing up this tree. I thought that a little bit of shade in this area will add a little bit of depth, and it will be a little bit more understandable for you. And I'm really happy I've done that, because it's really a great way to make this ivy appear on the paper. So that was my first addition in this third layer. And then I wanted to add a little bit more texture for the pine needles, because I thought that there was too little pine needles in the details. So I added a lot more here and there. And I changed a lot of the colors. Each time I was getting some colors in my palette, I tweaked the color a little bit more blue, a little bit more Aussie red golds. So there is a lot more hue of greens in this area, and it will be a little bit more interesting that way. And lastly, I wanted to work a little bit more on the texture of the tree trunk, because I know that I could make a little bit of a better job in this area. So I'm adding another layer of gray and brown tone by mixing Indanthrene blue and burnt sienna together. I can have a really dark color with that mix, and it's working really great, I think. that was my first time to attempt a portrait of a tree, and I think I will do it a little bit more, and I will work on this subject more, because I have some other idea for this trunk and this tree. And this video is now ending. Thanks for watching, and I hope you like it. Please check the blog post for more information about this painting and tell me what you think in the comment. See you soon.